Hey, Brian, that is not my little track right now. That is the birds chirping in the background. I want to welcome everybody here. This is Encourage for the Day with Brian Butler. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. Looks like it's a beautiful day outside for you.
It is. It's a beautiful day, which is sometimes in stark contrast to what we might be feeling on the inside. It is good to get outside sometimes, to be able to see the beauty out there.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I got to get out there. I've been stuck inside for a little bit of the day, so I got to get outside and enjoy. So today is a really cool topic, something that has been something that I've been trying to do a better job of myself. But it's basically, the title is apologizing to our children, and there's so much that we can say about this. But before we do, I want to encourage everyone to check out what Brian is going to be doing tonight. I'm going to throw the flyer up on the screen. And Brian, if you can give us a little insight on what's going on for tonight.
Yes, certainly a whole lot of church parishes have a tradition of having a Lenten mission at some point during Lent. And a lot of times, maybe if people have been going through a dry period, they're really looking forward to being able to get that little hit where they go in and get a proclamation of the gospel that kind of shakes them up a little bit and helps reorient things for Lent and heading towards Easter. And this year, so many parishes, if not all of them, aren't able to do that. And so we're having a Holy Week mission tonight live through Facebook Live and Zoom. So if you get on Dumox Ministries Facebook page tonight, even if you don't have Facebook, I know some people are worried about that, but even if you don't have Facebook, you can still watch it on the Facebook page. So just look up Dumox Ministries, the Facebook page there, 7 p.m. Central Time until 8, and we'll have a talk, we'll have some music, a little bit of prayer, and then a little bit of commenting and questions before we close the night together. So if you have kids, as many of you do, and 7 p.m. is too early because you got baths and bedtime and all that kind of stuff, you can watch the replay on the Facebook page probably by about 8:30 p.m. And so, so it's called Given for You, and we're going to do a similar mission, an Easter week mission, next Wednesday, April 15th. That'll be celebrating, which we certainly want to be able to do as well. So I would love to have you all with us tonight.
Awesome, Brian. Thanks so much for doing that, and I got that up, and We'll shoot that flyer back up at the end. Again, Brian's email address is right below his beautiful face, Brian at dumoxministries.com. You can check out his website, dumoxministries.com, Facebook, and the Zoom link is all there too. So please check that out. Awesome time tonight, especially as we are in Holy Week. This is game time. It's a great opportunity for us to really dive deeper into our faith and to really put away a lot of the distractions and to really commit into a very deep, intimate week with the Lord this week through the liturgical calendar that we're focusing on this Holy Week. A lot of stuff, great stuff going on. So, Brian, apologizing to our children, why is this something that's important for you? Like, what is at the heart of this message? Why is this important? Why are we talking about it today?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think for the first many years of my parenthood, of my fatherhood, it wasn't something that I really gave much time or attention to outside of if I accidentally knocked my kid down or I accidentally bumped into them, did something that was an accident, and kind of like, oh, I'm sorry. But outside of that, it wasn't something I was accustomed to. And probably 5-6 years ago, there were certain ways that, I recognized that I hurt my kids, and really was invited into a deeper space of being able to recognize that and intentionally ask their forgiveness. And it was hard, but it was very, very beautiful and fruitful in a lot of ways. Didn't always feel good, but I think it's something that we as parents can grow in a lot, and kind of being more intentional about that. We say we're sorry to a lot of people, but our kids seem to kind of maybe be last to get that sometimes.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, we were talking about this beforehand, like, there's some misunderstandings of why we don't, as parents, ask our kids for an apology, to say that I'm sorry to my kids, because there's a part of me is that, like, okay, look, Daddy made a mistake, and then are they going to start like doubting my decisions now? I made a mistake once, I'll make it again. And what do you say to that if someone's saying, well, maybe, what's the big deal? Like, it's if someone's struggling with that struggle, what do you tell them?
Well, I think as you mentioned, I mean, forgiveness is at the heart of good relationships, right? If we want to have a truly intimate relationship with someone, then we have to be willing to admit when we're wrong. But as parents, I think a lot of times, like, think about it this way, like, there is nobody else on earth that we have the same authority over as we do our children. Nobody else on earth do we get the fourth commandment like entitled to us, right? Like, obey your father and your mother. Like, that's something that parents, we hold in our back pocket, and sometimes we wield it in such a way that's not as healthy. Sometimes maybe we really recognize what a reverence that deserves. And I think that sometimes it's a fear of losing control. Yeah. Because I can't control my boss. I can't control my siblings. I can't control my parents. I can't control my friends. I can't control my employees. I can't control the government. I can't control the virus. There's so many things I can't control. And right now, in a particular way, some parents might really be tempted to control their kids. And so at the very last thing you would want to do is like put yourself in a space where you feel weak before them to admit that you've made mistakes, that you've hurt them, you're sorry. It's a hard thing to do, but such a necessary thing to open up deeper relationship with them.
I think that's it too, where there's this weakness. We have a hard time, thinking that, well, it's a sign of weakness. If I admit that I'm wrong to my kids, it's a sign of weakness, and are they going to start doubting my authority? And we want to kind of hold on to that authority and hold on to that strength. And like you're saying, it's just the opposite, where when we show vulnerability, that increases the intimacy in that relationship. When we're trying to put walls up and trying to like right as might, it really misses out on the opportunity that we have in diving deeper. And specifically, the whole reason why this is so important with whoever we are asking forgiveness or seeking forgiveness or looking for forgiveness is that this is so key to our faith, that the Lord said that we're going to be forgiven by the measure in which we forgive others. So if we've done all these amazing things in the world, if we've gone out there and served the poor and food to the hungry and all this, but if we have unforgiveness in our heart, if we've been holding grudges, I heard it said one time, holding a grudge is like you holding your breath, hoping that the other person passes out from it. And all it does is just suffocate the life out of you, right? And so we do that, and that unforgiveness, that is something that is unhealthy to the max in the Christian walk. So we've got to be able to embrace that challenge to forgive and to ask for forgiveness whenever those situations open and avail themselves to us.
Yeah, and I think to name some of the other temptations or reasons why we might try to rationalize as parents that's not what I really need to do. I don't need to do. I do need to confess my sins to a priest. I do need to tell my wife or my husband that I'm sorry, but to confess to my children is just like, no, and I can say as a man, like as the father of the household, like that's a very humbling thing to do. Yeah. Especially to do it in front of other members of the family, which is sometimes warranted. Right, is to actually not only acknowledge it to one person, but to acknowledge it to that person in front of others, or to acknowledge it to all of the family. It's a powerful thing. So I think the temptation is, again, to hold on to that power, to hold on to control, to hold on to the fact that I have all my stuff together, and all the problems in this house really aren't my fault. They're got to be from everybody else.
If you would have just done that, none of this would have happened. Right? You can put the blame, and you can say all these things.
It gives everybody else permission to try to act the same way, right?
That's right.
If we lead from that place, it's like, okay, well, so the way that dad and mom think that we should do things is never admit anything's your fault. They tell us we need to admit it's ours, but really,
and you push the blame on something or someone else.
Right. And I think another temptation is like, well, if dad or mom admit that they were wrong and they say they were sorry, then they're saying that they weren't trustworthy in that moment. And then you feel like, so my kids aren't going to trust me anymore. That if I made this mistake, how can they trust that I'm not going to make it again? And I think the reality is that we're not always trustworthy. Yeah. We want to earn our kids' trust.
Yeah. No, I think the thing is that, one of the things that we struggle with, right, in doing this is that, sign of weakness, and it hits our pride, and we don't want to we try to hold on to the idea of like, do as I say, not as I do, right? So, and we think that we can get away when parenting by all these things, whether it's forgiveness, whether it's mercy, whether it's whatever it is, following the Lord and all that. You do that because I said you do it, versus, and then, but at the same time, you're not showing that. Was it Pope Paul VI said, St. Paul VI said, modern man listens more not to a good teacher, but to a witness. And if they listen to the teacher, it's because he is a witness. So we need to witness by our example. So we need to demonstrate. And the beauty is that, especially now, right, we're in this Corona time, and we are in closed corners so much more than before. Like the whole cabin fever is setting in, and we're trying to deal with things. And so certain weaknesses or struggles are kind of maybe coming up more and more than normal. So what do you do in those situations? And I think that this is something that can be a great remedy for some of the conflicts in the home, is by setting that humble heart example, that witness, by whenever you make a mistake, whenever I make a mistake, to be quick to be able to say, look, I'm sorry. Daddy wasn't acting patient like I should have been, and I wasn't being kind with my words, and I was really kind of brooding over that injury, and I should not have done that. So I'm sorry for raising my voice. Now, what you did wasn't right, but what I did also too wasn't right. And I want to ask you right now, will you forgive me for that? And then to pause and give them the freedom to say, I'm sorry. I forgive you and I love you.
Yeah, and in that space, I think we really do start to build the kingdom of God in our homes, right? Like we hear the scripture that says, like, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, not our own righteousness, not to try to puff up ourselves to say how perfect we are. And what that starts to teach our kids is that, guess what? Mom and dad don't love you because of how perfect you are. Mom and dad, we love you because you're ours. And the whole way that we can even do that is because that's what we learned from our Father, that he's not loving us because of our perfection, but he's loving us because of his perfection.
That's right.
And that starts to make the home be a space where it's okay to be messy. Not that we're saying that you can just go ahead and do whatever you want whenever you want, but that it's, you don't have to hold up a facade of perfection. That you can, we may not always be able to handle our messy stuff, but we're gonna stay together through our messy stuff.
And God gives us,
I think,
this.
that
Yeah, no, God gives us this space, right? And the thing is, I remember watching this movie. I might have mentioned it before in a different thing that we did, but it was Dan in Real Life, and Steve Carell in the movie. He, not a spoiler alert, but I mean, he really kind of messed up right in the movie. He has 3 daughters. His wife had passed, and so they were all coming together for this like family trip or whatever like that. They were out in this cabin or whatever by the lake, and so anyway, something happens in the story, and Steve Carell's character, the dad, got the girls, his daughters, just real mad. Like he really messed up, and they were really mad, closing the door right in his face type stuff. And he kind of is sulking, and he goes into the kitchen, and his mom is in the kitchen, and his dad, and they're both just kind of sitting there, just kind of quiet. And Steve Carell just kind of says, I really hurt them, didn't I? And then the mother said, yeah, but go unhurt them. And I love that line, because it really shows that we will unfortunately make mistakes, and we're going to say things sometimes that is not kind and not loving. We're going to do things to hurt the relationship at times, but God's love is bigger, that we can go in and enter in, is just as he's giving us the grace and the strength to say I'm sorry, but also by the grace of God can bring a softened heart. He can bring redemption. He can bring healing into that moment. And allowing that humble and contrite heart to be witness to the kids will also be a teaching lesson for them, that whenever they mess up, because they will, no matter how good of a parent you're going to be, our kids are going to mess up too, just like we messed up. They're going to mess up too. They're going to have a memory of what their dad or what their mom did in the moment when they found themselves in the wrong. That they put on their big boy pants and they went over to their children and said, I'm sorry, Daddy was wrong. And to be able to witness that, I think, so not only does it give them an opportunity to find healing in their heart, because you're allowing that humble heart to be in yours, but you're teaching them an opportunity of what to look for in the future whenever they wrong someone.
Absolutely, and then modeling for them like how to do that is so important, because they may not always remember what we've said, but they're going to very often do as they've seen us do. And so to try to have some practicals on that, to try to really be able to stop everything else and give it quality time, to actually be able to offer this sincere apology, to be able to look them in the eyes. Like that's an important thing, that like the art of looking people in the eye is definitely lost today in so much of our technological revolution. And so to really look them in the eye and allow them to, like, encourage them to look up. If they've been really hurt, they might not even want to look us in the eye. But to encourage them, look, I want to see your eyes. I'm so sorry. And to model that with our tone of voice, and to truly then show them with our bodies, right? Of being able to give them a hug and hold them and tell them with our bodies that we're sorry, not only with my words, but with my action. Like, hey, I did not want what happened, and I'm so sorry that I hurt you. And I'm sorry. Be specific, right, about what it was that we did, and teach them in the process that the response is not "it's okay," because it's not okay.
That's right.
The response is like, I forgive you.
That's right.
Can you please forgive me? Yes, I forgive you. And last thing I'll just say before I think you're gonna share a little practical exercise, Jason, is that John Paul II said that mercy is the content of intimacy. And that's a really beautiful thing to meditate on this whole Holy Week, I think, for us. Is like when we bring all of our sins to God, we allow the possibility of a new intimacy, because we're unveiling parts of our heart that we didn't before with him, and we're giving him access there. But that's true with our kids too, that as we unveil certain parts of our hearts that we haven't to them, and we give them some access there, we open up our hearts, we're vulnerable, then there's a possibility of a deeper intimacy in that place.
Yeah, and that's what we're that's the hope, is that in this weakness, God is making us strong. In this vulnerability, God is bringing about a deeper intimacy. And so we should not be afraid. And so there's 3 specific things that we wanted to share with you guys about ways that we can kind of foster this forgiveness in the home. And number 1 would be to foster in your own self and in your children a nightly examine. If there's a way that you can encourage them to do a nightly examine, maybe even a simple way of doing that would be first step is just one of the last prayers of the night is the act of contrition. And you can kind of walk through that prayer with them and teach them that prayer. And that could be a prayer that they pray at the end of the night, just asking for forgiveness for the times that we failed to do the things that we should have, and just calling upon that mercy that is so ready available to us. The second thing would be something that there was a great couple, the Fletchers, Pete and Christine Fletcher. They talked about pizza and penance. One time on a retreat, they mentioned how they would go as a family once a month. They would go to the Sacrament of Reconciliation, and then afterwards they would go and celebrate by getting pizza. And I thought that was just awesome. And I was like, man, that's what a practical way of trying to foster the habit of forgiveness in the home, and to also tie in the celebration. And later on, I remember looking at Luke's gospel. In Luke 15, you had the woman who was looking for the coin, and she finds, the coin, and she goes and wakes her neighbors and says, celebrate with me. The shepherd who finds his lost sheep goes and celebrates with his friends and neighbors once he found his sheep. And then the prodigal son, when he returned, the father put on this feast that was so big it enticed the jealousy of the older brother. So celebration is part of reconciliation. So when we go to confession once a month, we tie in celebration with that. And so I know we're in Corona time, and so we won't be able to do, maybe some of that is not as accessible. What's that?
Make your own pizzas.
Yeah, exactly. Make your own pizzas. But we got to find a way to confess. So, but the point is that when that gets back into the day, then we can celebrate that once a month, make that a commitment, and that builds a great habit. And the kids see you going, and that is powerful. And the kids are encouraged monthly to go, and sometimes there's little nerves about why am I doing this, and get a chance to talk to them about this. It's a growing opportunity, and not to mention the graces behind it. And the third thing would be something that Emily Froba mentioned. This was what we did on our family retreat. I'm gonna put this up on the screen. It was an activity that she shared with the families, and this was one that got a lot of positive feedback on the family retreat. So if you're watching this, if you want to send me an email, I can email you this as a PDF. But basically, it's an exercise that you do as a family. You get the family together, and there's like a rock that you put in the middle of the room on the dinner table, whatever you're doing, and you walk through this exercise, and it basically gives everybody a chance to say, here's a reason that I'm sorry for this. And then the person who you're saying sorry for will take the rock out of your hand, in a sense, because of forgiveness is like removing the boulder that is the weight from the sin. And then they say, by removing the rock, they show that they are forgiving. And then they say the words, I forgive you and I love you. And then they can put the rock back on the center of the table, or they can take that rock and then they themselves can then have the opportunity to say to somebody in the family, I'm sorry for, and then they say it. And then they walk through this little thing, and then at the end you have a little thing to say at the end, and then you close with an Our Father. So anyway, it's a great little exercise. When we did this on the family retreat with you, Brian, and we had all the families together, this was really a powerful, moving exercise for the family, and it was just opened up a lot of intimacy. So again, it's amazing how when we make mistakes, though we don't want to, God allows these mistakes because in them, God can make something greater come out of it. And so no matter how hard the hurt feels, no matter how bad we might have messed up, God is still bigger, and He can take those difficulties, He can enter into it and bring God's glory. So, Brian, it was great talking with you this day. It's a beautiful day. I hope everybody's doing well and having a beautiful Spy Wednesday, and everybody has a beautiful Holy Week. And Brian, again, thanks so much. I'm going to put that flyer back up on the screen. Check Brian out tonight. Check out his website, dumoxministries.com, and you can find out more about his event going on the Facebook page, or if you have an email, if you have a question, you can send him an email. Again, thanks everybody so much, and we look forward to next time. God bless.